Welcome to the planning period. Today I have some more Women's History Month resources to share and another media challenge. I'm going to try one of our hands-on activities and we're going to take a sneak peek at our summer program. But first I want to step out from behind the desk figuratively and share a little bit more about who I am, what this show is all about, and why the Michigan Learning Channel exists. So, hi, I'm Matt. I'm the program director for the Michigan Learning Channel. My job is to support and direct educational programming that reaches schools, teachers, and families all across Michigan. And at its core, the Michigan Learning Channel is exactly what it sounds like. It's a hub for education, statewide, accessible, and built on the values of PBS. Now, PBS has always been an organization built on collaboration and community. PBS is made up of member stations who contribute content, air programs, and bring information and education to local communities. We're not that different at the Michigan Learning Channel. We bring together member stations in Michigan, we make content, and we share everything we can find that will make teaching and learning better. This work is personal for me. Before stepping into this role, I spent over a decade as an educator, teaching middle school, high school, and university students. And now with the Michigan Learning Channel, I get to do that while living into the values of public media and sharing the power of media with everyone else across the state. Media shapes the way we teach, learn, and interact with the world. That's why on the planning period, you'll hear me talk a lot about media literacy, the role of storytelling in education, and how we can all use digital tools to engage students in creative and meaningful ways. Because I know teaching and learning are better when the entire world is your school, you're gonna hear me mention other PBS stations and other programs from around the country, and I'll refer you to PBS Learning Media a lot, which is the national hub for free educational content created by PBS stations and partner organizations across the country. While I'm super proud of the programs that we produce in the state of Michigan, my job and my passion is around supporting teachers, learners, and families with everything we have access to, following the lead of what PBS programs have always done. We are here to educate, inform, and inspire. So that's what we're doing here. The planning period is more than just a show. It's a space to celebrate education, to share ideas, and to build a community of teacher learners across Michigan. Because when we come together, when we share our stories, our challenges, and our successes, we make education stronger for everyone. Now, all that said, I'm gonna spend a lot of time on this show celebrating Michigan schools and teachers and highlighting content and resources from our friends and partners, but sometimes I'll have something of ours that I really wanna share, and today's one of those days. I snagged some early proofs for our summer activity books this year, and I think we should take a sneak peek. So if you didn't know, we run an 8-week summer program every year that starts after school gets out in most of Michigan. The program utilizes most of our on-air and digital shows alongside an activity book that students can watch. They can watch educational programs and complete hands-on activities. They can practice writing, they can practice math, do science experiments and stuff. We've had schools partner with us to order the books and send them home with families. We've had schools use the books as a summer school curriculum. We've had camps use the activities, libraries, you name it. People love these books. So let's see why. So these are actually the books, the completed books from last year, so you can see kind of what they look like. They're very nice books. We always love the design. They're super eye-catching and colorful and have characters that kids recognize. But what I'm honestly really excited about today is to look at these printer proofs for the upcoming season from this year. So this is the first time I've taken a look at these. We're gonna do it together. This is a copy of our upper elementary book and our lower elementary book. We offer a preschool learners or an early learners book, and then our upper elementary is like 4th, 5th, and 6th-ish grades, and our elementary is usually K-3, just based on the standards that are aligned with the activities that we include in these books. So let's dive. I've got the upper elementary here is the blue one that I'm gonna take a look at. Again, beautiful color. Shout out to our sponsors, everybody who makes this work possible. We've got some really great family-friendly, like how to use the book, how to get involved, as well as, you know, how to engage with the Michigan Learning Channel. Printer's proofs, we're learning along the way. We have 8 weekly themes, so every week has a different theme, and those are listed here. We have a website where you can find local events to engage with, where to hang out with the Michigan Learning Channel. But what I'm really interested in is these activity pages. We've got, look at this, even just in the first few pages, career exploration. Career Girls is an awesome program. This is an activity sheet from our brand new Read, Write, Roar ELA show for 4th and 5th grade learners. This is one of my favorite episodes. This is all about the Detroit River otters that came back to our Detroit River in Southeast Michigan most recently. We've got math lessons. We've got lessons from our friends at Story Pirates. Story Pirates is an awesome podcast and TV show that encourages kids to get creative and practice creative writing and tell stories. We've got, what else is it? Ooh, DIY Science Time is another one of my favorite programs. This is a show that invites students to do science and create science experiments and explore phenomena with stuff that they have at home, or again, at your library, at your summer camp, wherever. So, super excited about this. Let's take a quick look at the early elementary. A lot of the programs are the same. We do use a lot of our same programs across grade levels, even though the content might be a little bit different. One of the extra cool aspects of both the early learning for preschoolers and the lower elementary books is that there's also a ton of PBS Kids content in here. So this is a Wildcrats activity that we get to include. This is a dinosaur train activity that gets kids thinking about nature and history. This is actually a nature treasure hunt, which is perfect for summer in Michigan. Find different kinds of plants and different kinds of animals that live in your neighborhood. I love that. We've got our early elementary Read, Write, Roar program. So much in these books. They are going to be available soon from our printer on the site, and they'll actually be available for free. You can hop on the website and you'll be able to access a digital file that you can view online. You can also print them. If you're a local organization and you have a printer, we can get you access to the print file. If you're at home, obviously you can view them online, or you can kind of print them in piecemeal. But we also make them available for ordering. If you're an organization, again, if you have a budget, you can contact a printer that we work with that offers these at a really fantastic rate. So if you're interested, again, families, stay tuned, because the whole resource and all the playlists will be available on our brand new website very soon. But if you're an organization, you're planning summer programming, you're a school, you want to send summer learning home with your families to curb the summer slide, check out michiganlearning.org/summer. There's previews of the content, there's information about ordering, there's the phone number to call to get your books, and we're so excited to spend summer with you soon. This week, we're gonna dive deeper into some Women's History Month resources. But actually, I'm not just gonna tell you about these ones, we're gonna take a tour. I realize I talk a lot about PBS learning media on here, but I also realize that sometimes it's a little complicated to navigate. So I'm going to use this segment this week as an example, and we're going to use our planning period to do some planning together. So here we go. This is going to be linked on the landing page for this episode. It's the Women's Suffrage Collection. One of my favorite things about learning media, and one of the main reasons I keep coming back, is the way resources are often a part of collections. For example, if I click into this resource, you can see here that it's part of a collection. And I can look at all of these extra options, and if I click this button up here, I can actually see where it came from. And I can see all of the resources. I love the collections because the resources that come up from a search or from a link isn't always exactly what I want, but if I go to the collection on a page like this, if I found, for example, one of these links through a search, and I click back through the collection, I can find sort of the other elements and other pieces of the collection. And I find someone else, and maybe I can piece together a couple things to build a lesson plan or a project that meets my learning goals. So let's go back to the Women's History collection and the Women's Suffrage collection here. First of all, there's this amazing interactive right here, but if I continue to scroll down, there are other different playlists of content based around different themes. So I'm seeing early women's rights activities, I'm seeing 19th Amendment, I'm seeing advocates and organizers, and I'm already thinking about maybe we could do a jigsaw or a small group activity where students become experts of these different topic categories, and they get to engage with these different activities and become experts and then educate their peers as we build a timeline or a museum exhibit around these themes, or we work on a collective multimedia report or another larger scale demonstration together. But say I want one lesson for everyone, and I can also find topics that align with my curriculum or instructional goals. I'm going to pay attention to how they're categorized. So I'm looking at grade level. If I look in each one of these cards, they all have a grade level listed. I'm looking at resource type. So I can see here, this is an interactive resource. These resources under early women's rights activities, there's a video, there's a lesson plan, and I'm looking, as I click on them, over the teacher materials, support materials for teachers and support materials for use with students, to see what is already available and what I might have to also create to support learning. Now here's a media challenge that I would bring into my classroom to celebrate Women's History Month. Have your students create their own interactive learning experiences. This idea came to me this week when I was looking around online for examples of monuments, memorials, murals, and other public art experiences that celebrate women's history. And I found out that Battle Creek, for example, has a statue of Harriet Tubman, and Grand Rapids has a whole trail of monuments to women, and Detroit has a huge amphitheater that carries Aretha Franklin's name. And I think it would be so cool to have students identify places like this in their communities and create their own interactive experiences with them. Here's how I do it. Step 1, help students brainstorm and identify the places they want to feature in their interactive. Invite them to think about a theme for their project, like women in STEM or women in the arts, and then guide them to places where they can research sites for their project. Step 2, leverage some media literacy learning and have students create or identify photographs, video, audio, and other media elements that really showcase the site. Encourage them to use multiple kinds of media, like we saw in the women's suffrage model experience. Challenge them to think about how they can build an engaging and powerful experience for viewers. What kinds of sounds, clickable elements, and multimedia stories should they include? Step 3, host a gallery day where students can all experience their peers' projects. Invite students to offer feedback and share what they learned from the project so that you can assess for learning goals and skill development. You might also host the completed projects on a class website or partner with your local library or museum to share your students' projects more widely. So it's National Nutrition Month, which means we get an excuse to talk about food, maybe write about food, maybe try food together, which was always one of my favorite things to do in the classroom. I actually put together a playlist that I want to share with you that has some videos about nutrition, jobs in food and nutrition, gardening and composting, water quality, stuff like that. We also have a series of videos on the site from the Ann Arbor District Library called 30 Days of Clay Food, and I'm going to try one of them. So I'm gonna do the taco video on the site, and I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about nutrition and some of the ways that I might incorporate this into learning in my classroom. So let's hit the video. They're gonna start us out. I've got my clay, and they've got this really nice kind of graphic of how to get started. So shell, filling, toppings, cheese. They've got a yellow taco shell. I am actually gonna use blue because blue corn tacos are my favorite. And if I were in the classroom, I would definitely bring it up just as an excuse to do like a history lesson and talk to students about corn and how old corn is as a cultivated crop in the Western Hemisphere, and all of the different varieties of corn that exist, even though we only have access to some of them, especially in the United States. I'm falling behind because I'm getting distracted. Okay, shape my taco shell. They're already moving on to the filling. It looks like they have some sort of like beef-inspired filling here. I'm gonna use a couple of my different colors and make some veggies. One of my favorite tacos is actually nopales y queso, which nopales is made from cactus pads, and cheese. So I'm gonna use the green to make like chopped up cactus for my taco. Maybe some red for some peppers, and they're doing cheese, so this is not gonna be a vegan taco, but that's okay. break apart and shape the cheese. So it looks like they make all the ingredients separately. I kind of love this. I think there's a cool opportunity here to talk with students also during National Nutrition Month about mindful eating. You know, this really gives us an opportunity to think about all of the different elements that are going into this dish. I would also ask students about food that they're familiar with. You know, obviously I have a connection from my culture and my family to tacos and Mexican food. And I always loved asking my students to teach me about the food that they're familiar with, the dishes that come from their families. Oh, that's so cute. It says, "You have made a taco." I'm almost done. I fell behind a little bit. But yeah, we did in my classroom a lot of, history. I taught world history for a while, and I love teaching through the lens of food history. We looked at the Columbian Exchange. We looked at where food is from, you know, even taking something as seemingly simple as the taco and picking apart the nutritional elements. The idea that a traditional taco is a nutritionally complete food. It has all of the elements that people need to survive. What does that mean? You know, what's protein? What's vegetable? What are the carbohydrates? Where does corn come from? Those kinds of questions that I think can be relevant, obviously, in a health class, but also in a history class. Obviously, if you get into culture and food making, that's super relevant for language classes. If you get into the storytelling elements of like, how do you talk about food that you care about? How do you tell stories about food? Super relevant for ELA. For my science teachers, one of my favorite science connections is the nixtamalization process that corn tortillas are actually made from. It's this amazing, wild, scientific process that was discovered so long ago and makes nutritional content available through corn. So I could continue sort of gushing about food, obviously, but what I wanted to share was, here's a great little prompt, and we have 30 of these activities around food. It gets students doing things with their hands. It brings art and creativity into your classroom. It opens up conversation and discussion. You've got this sort of duality of like, we're doing a thing and making a thing together while we're talking and learning. And then you have all kinds of extension opportunities if you want to talk about turning it into a research project. If you want to talk about how then do we display our creations? How do we make our meals? How do we share more stories with each other and with our families? So we'll link the playlist in the description so that you have lots of opportunities to learn about and talk about food with your students. We'll link the videos for all of the clay food. And I hope you try something like this for National Nutrition Month. World Wildlife Day was at the beginning of this month, but this week we're airing another awesome program from PBS Nature called Big Cats, Small World. This is an amazing, beautiful nature documentary in the modern, engaging style that you'd expect from PBS Nature, so worth a watch for anyone. But if you know me, I want you to share it with young people, and I've got ideas for how to do that. If you visit Nature on the web, you'll find episodes that you can screen in your classroom, along with shorter clips from Big Cats and other recent nature docs. And you'll also find articles, blog posts, and other digital resources that you can bring into your classroom to promote nonfiction reading and media literacy learning around global topics that are bound to be highly engaging for your students. And if you teach younger students, there's a whole section on the site called Nature Junior, where you can find special clips, lesson plans, and activities to bring into your classroom. All right, that was a super fun episode. I'm hungry now after that clay activity, so I'm gonna go get some tacos, but I hope this was helpful for you. If there was something in this that resonates with you, I'd really love to know, and I can't wait to see you next time.
This program is made possible in part by the state of Michigan and by viewers like you. Thank you.